Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our Finance at University and live session. Today, we're going to be talking through everything you need to know about applying for your student finance, maybe some average costs of living in Nottingham as a student, as well as plenty more information. So I'll just pass over to David May, who is here as our financial expert today, to just give you a bit more information about himself, David.
Hi there, good evening. I'm David May. I look after NTU's financial advice service. So we provide lots of advice and guidance to students, sometimes on a one-to-one basis within appointments, but often as well to groups of students, ranging from all things to do with student finance and funding your course through to the core skills that you might need, like budgeting, money management. Our team also looks after a number of bursaries and a hardship fund. So we really are a one-stop shop for all things money. And we're here not only to support current students, but prospective students can use our service too.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, David. As you say, everything money that you might need to know, our team is here to support you. So how this evening is going to work is we've just got a presentation to last about 15-20 minutes, David, that's right, that we're going to be talking through loads of information, and then we also have a Q&A at the end. So if you do have any questions, just pop them in the comments and we will get round to them. If you do ask a question, it doesn't get answered, and maybe you joined halfway through the presentation, it might mean that we've already answered it. So be sure to re-watch this video. It will be on our YouTube channel after it's finished. If you did miss anything, if you joined us later through the presentation. So brilliant. So if I pop the presentation on screen now, and over to you, David.
Thank you very much, Katie. So we're going to go through some slides to talk about fees, funding and money. So a very warm welcome to everybody. Just going to give you a quick caveat insofar as some of the figures that you'll see within this presentation, they're for the current year that we're in at the moment. So the 22 to 23 academic year. And the reason for that is that we're just waiting for the government to provide the figures for next year. Now, we normally get them by about this time, so they should be imminent. And as soon as we get those, we will update our website with all of the new figures. So please do use these as a guide, but the new figures will be with us shortly. One further point, a lot of the figures around funding are for those of you that will be applying through Student Finance England. So if you will be applying to Student Finance Wales or Scotland or Northern Ireland, some of the figures are different. And if you need further information about those, then you can drop us an email at financial.support@ntu.ac.uk, and we'll be happy to provide you with further advice and guidance. For the contents of this presentation, first and foremost, we'll look at tuition fees. We'll move on to the student finance system and how you fund your studies. We'll look at some average living costs as a student, financial capability, and then we'll finish with some top tips. So first things first, tuition fees. So for each academic year, for the current system, for this year, tuition fees for full-time undergraduates that are classed as home students, so typically you may be a UK national that's been living here for the last 3 years, the tuition fee is £9,250 per year, and that figure, it is capped for the next few years, but the government do review student finance on a year-by-year basis, so do watch out for the finalisation of next year's, but we anticipate that they will still be £9,250. And many of our courses, usually in the third year, have a sandwich year option. So this is where you may go and work in industry for a year on a placement, or you may choose to study abroad, or a combination of the two. So for that particular year, the fee for NTU is currently £1,385. So student finance then. So the current package, so for this year, students can receive a tuition fee loan of £9,250. That's per academic year. And that particular loan is not subject to any household income assessment. So if you're eligible for student finance, that's the amount that you will get. Now, the maintenance loan, part of that is subject to a household income assessment, and the maintenance loan is the loan that will make a contribution towards your living costs. So that could be accommodation, it could be food, it could be course costs. So we'll drill down more into the maintenance loan and how that works in a few slides' time. In addition to the maintenance loan, some students may receive some grants. So this could be if you have children or a dependent adult living with you, or it could be that you may have a specific learning difference or a disability, so you may need some additional financial support to help you on your course. Now, that may not necessarily be money that you see in the form of cash, but it could be money that you could draw down upon to pay for a non-medical helper or specialist equipment or software. That's known as the Disabled Students Allowance, and there's lots of really good information about that on the .gov.uk website, or of course you could contact us. So funding your studies, students do need to consider the income sources that they may have. So the biggest one for most students would be the maintenance loan, but more often than not, that may not necessarily be enough to meet all of your essential outgoings. So some students may choose to work part-time to supplement their income. They may have savings that they can bring into their studies. They may have support from family members or a carer. We also have a number of bursaries, which I'll talk about in a minute, and we do have scholarships potentially available. Some courses receive extra funding because they're tied to the NHS, so nursing is a good example of that. And as I mentioned, some students may receive extra grants. So it's a bit of a jigsaw puzzle funding, and you may need 2 or 3 of these to really ensure that you've got enough money to get through the course. Now, full-time students most of the time are not eligible for state benefits. However, if you're a parent or if you have a disability, then you may also be able to supplement your studies with state benefits. It's important to make sure that you get all of those changes communicated to the Department of Work and Pensions when you become a student. If you need a hand to work out what your entitlement might be once you become a student, if you'd like to do some calculations, you could contact us and we can certainly help you out with that. So at a university level then, we have a number of bursaries. So the main bursary is called the NTU bursary, and that's worth £750 per year. Now for the current arrangements, students receive that if they have a household income as assessed by Student Finance of £25,000 a year or less. So we get that data directly from the student loans company. So you'll need to be eligible for funding. We pull that data directly from those guys. So we automatically assign that bursary to all eligible students. You do not need to make a separate application. Some of our students are estranged from their families. They have no contact with either parent. Those students may be also entitled to our estranged student bursary. So that's worth an additional £1,000 per year, and you do need to make an application for that. Information about the estranged student bursary is available on the NTU website. And finally, some students may have been care experienced at some point since their 16th birthday. So if you're a care leaver or a foyer resident or previous foyer resident, then you may qualify for the care leaver bursary of £1,000. Now, it must be stated that you can't receive the care leaver bursary and the estranged student bursary at the same time, but you can certainly receive one of those and the NTU bursary. So the maximum bursary support that you may be entitled to is £1,750. Okay, so I mentioned the maintenance loan. So here is a chart for the current year. So the amount of maintenance that a student receives will go up on a year-by-year basis in line with inflation. So we're just waiting to see what next year's figures are going to be. So as a guide, this is what our current year's full-time undergraduates receive. So everybody is entitled, if they're living away from the parental home, to at least £4,524 for the academic year. So that's for household incomes of 62,000 or so, or over. So you're guaranteed at least that. Now, if you decide not to be household income assessed for any reason, that's what you'll get as well. And then as household income starts to decrease, the amount of maintenance loan that you'll be entitled to will increase up to, for the current year, a maximum of £9,706. Now, those students also receive the bursary from ourselves, which is non-repayable, so that's an extra £750. So on the right-hand side, you'll see another column, and that's the column that shows you what your potential shortfall might be. So how much less than the maximum loan would you get? So if you're from a household income that's quite high, then you may need to consider how you might supplement your maintenance loan. So would you look at part-time work? Are there savings that you have? Is there parental support? So it's time to really start thinking about those sorts of things. Now, although these charts go up in £5,000 increments on the presentation here, the actual assessment is based upon the exact household income, and Student Finance normally get that data directly from Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, and they typically use a tax year from a couple of years ago to assess the academic year in question. More and more of our students are choosing to live in the parental home. You're still entitled to a maintenance loan if you do that. Figures are a bit lower, so the minimum, the guaranteed amount as it were, is 3597, and that goes up to a maximum of 8171. And again, those students receive a bursary of £750 in addition. Excuse me. So if you haven't already started to do so, it's a really good thing to think about how much maintenance loan you might be entitled to. To help you along with that, on the gov.uk website, student finance pages, there are calculators, so they can plug in some details about parental income, and that will give you a guide as to how much maintenance loan you might get. So these are for each academic year. They will go up a little bit with inflation every year, and we typically get the data for the next academic year around now. So it's always worth planning early and getting into the habit of budgeting. So we mentioned part-time work, and there's lots of potential options available in Nottingham, and you don't need to travel far. So you can build up your work experience and financially support your studies, and you could possibly do that right here within the university. So our colleagues in employability, they have a job shop. So lots of local employers advertise vacancies for part-time work around Nottingham. But in addition to that, through Unitemps, you may be able to work right here on campus. So as an example, we have a number of open days every year. We have lots of students working the open days, and they provide invaluable support, not to the open day, but they can also give you lots of inside information about what it's like to be a student, you know, what their halls are like, what Nottingham's like, what the university is like. So if you ever come on campus for an open day, do talk to the students who wear pink. They're very, very helpful, and they'll give you lots of useful information. So lots of opportunity for part-time work, but do strike the right balance. If you work too many hours, that could hinder your academic potential. So do make sure that you get it about right. So just to give you some figures then, 52% of our students, when we last surveyed them, told us that they worked during term time, and that goes up to 63% who work both during term time and the holiday periods. So just to give you an example, most courses you study for about 30 weeks out of a 52-week year, so there's plenty of time to work in between those times should you wish to.
Just on that as well with part-time jobs, I think as well another thing about having a part-time job is another sort of circle of friends or a way to meet new people as well. I mean, especially if you're say if you've got your course friends, then you might have a course that is living with a flat, then a lot of students will also work in the different places within Nottingham. And when I was a student at uni, I worked in a few different retail stores, and it just again allows you to meet more people. So as well as the financial benefit, it also really helps you settle into life in
That's a
Nottingham.
really, really good point, Katie. When we've surveyed students, those that do work have said actually it helps their studies because
Yeah,
they're doing something a bit different. They're taking a break from the academic stuff, and then
100%. It gives
they're
you a really
reset
good,
And
Gives you a really good routine. I really enjoyed it.
absolutely. And also, if you're working, you can build up some experience, because once you're looking for work, once you've finished your course, you're going to be asked some competency-based questions. Give us an example of when you went the extra mile, that sort of thing. So, working can really pay dividends, not only financially, but for your future as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, so let's have a look at some living costs as a student. So these figures here are taken from the most recent National Student Survey. These are not specific to Nottingham, these are UK-wide, but they will give you an idea as to how much typical living costs might be. Now, it's important to note that these figures are for 2022. Inflation's currently 11%, so you may need to just factor them up a little bit for when you arrive. So course materials can vary, consider it depending on the course that you might do. So we have a load of creative courses here, art and design courses, so you may have slightly higher costs than on here. Groceries 116, mobile phone package 18, socializing £59. Now, when we surveyed these students, wasn't just year one students. We've got all years, possibly postgrads too. So it's the chances are you may spend more socializing in the first year than the third year, but everybody is different. But it's useful to have these guidelines. Holidays and events 25, clothes 35, traveling 54. So if you haven't been to Nottingham, if you're not familiar with our city, it's quite a small city. You may not necessarily need to travel a huge amount during term time. It might just be at the end of term going home. That said, some of our students choose to live on one campus and study on another. So we've got about 5 campuses now. And so we do have arrangements with local bus company for travel cards, which I'll come on to shortly. But your travel costs could be very individual to you. And as it's a small city, you can walk from one end of the city centre to the other end in about 25 minutes if you've got long legs like me. Takeaways, £49, then health and well-being, £20. So we will update figures on a year-by-year basis on the website. So for next year's figures, we'll put them on as soon as we have them. So if you're interested in how these change over the next year or so, do keep coming back to the NTU website. We do keep it updated as quickly as we can. So here are some potential upfront costs that you might want to consider. So again, this is for the current academic year. So I mentioned a bus pass through Nottingham City Transport. So if you choose, for example, to live in the city centre but study at Clifton, you can get the number 4 bus. They're super frequent, takes about 20 minutes directly from one campus right onto another. So the bus pass for the academic year is £259 currently. That is an introductory offer, so you can only get that for the first few weeks of term. So do look into one of those if you feel that you will be travelling a lot between campuses. Cycle hire is £109, but you get £60 of that back as a deposit. Gym membership, £140 for anytime access or £99 for off-peak. However, there are often discounts available. Contents insurance is £70. So if you're in halls, for example, that will cover your room. Many of these companies may also cover things like laptops and mobiles when you're out and about. Do shop around. Lots of good deals to be had. Seek advice if you want to get a bit more information about how insurance works. But there's lots of good info online, comparison websites and such like that can really help you out. Kitchen items, £60 plus. Many of the students get to know each other online via Facebook groups, for example, before they arrive, and they often discuss what each of them are going to bring, so there's no duplication and it can save money. So it's certainly worth getting involved with those groups before you even arrive. And then bedding, as a rough example, £57, but you could spend as much as you need or as little as you need. The world is very much your oyster. A lot of these figures do appear on our website as well. So if you haven't made any notes, you should be able to find them online. Okay, so now we move on to the important stuff. So this is your financial roadmap. So the first important date to give consideration to is spring. That's when applications open for student finance. It's typically end of February, beginning of March time. golden rule number one is do apply early for your funding, even if you're not sure where you're going to go or what university you're going to choose or what course you're going to choose, because the bit that can take time is the application of you and the household income. If you leave it to the last minute, you may be in a situation where you arrive for welcome week and you don't have any money, and it could be a while before that funding assessment completes. If you apply early, it takes a few weeks. If you leave it to June, July time, it can take several months. So apply early, even if you haven't got a confirmed place. You can always change the information about the course and university at a click of a mouse button. And also, money is not paid out until you're here. So in spring, NTU accommodation opens. You'll have information about that sent to you, but there are other providers as well. So do consider your budget, do shop around to see what's best for you. Then the end of May, that's a soft deadline for student finance applications. That will guarantee that you'll get your funding in time. Do consider whether or not you need a student bank account. You do get lots of incentives. Some of them may provide an interest-free overdraft or things like rail cards. However, traditionally they don't pay the best interest rate. So you may prefer to have a better return on the money in your account. And as interest rates are increasing at the moment, so are interest rates on some bank accounts. So shop around, seek advice, get what's best for you. And then during the summer, consider what you might need to bring. So what items do you need to pay for? Get into the habit of budgeting. And to support you with that, we've got a Money Ready for NTU workshop. It's all online. You can sign up. They're completely free. We give you loads of really useful top tips to get you sorted. And do check your student finance application. Make sure that's going through okay. Often they might ask for evidence. So log into your online portal. It's on the .gov.uk website, by the way, and they'll tell you if they need anything extra from you. Then finally, enrolment. So welcome week's typically the end of September. Do bring some money for the first few weeks. The reason for that is you have to be here before we can tell student finance that you're attending. And they set the confirmation that which releases your funding. That may well take 5 to 7 days. So have some money so you can enjoy all of the welcome week activities or buy a pint of milk, whatever it might be. Many universities sign up to Black Bullion. We do as well. It's completely free to use and it is an amazing financial capability platform. It doesn't sell you anything at all, but what it does do is give you lots of really useful information about all things money. So there are short videos, quizzes, pathways, and it's there to really help you hone your money skills. So there's lots of information on there about university life, how does student finance work. There's also loads about post-university life. And how do mortgages work? What's credit referencing? Do I need a pension? It's super useful. It doesn't sell you anything. It's completely free. And the best thing of all, as a prospective student, you can sign up as well and access some of it. So do take a look at blackbullion.com. It's certainly well worth a look for sure. I mentioned earlier that our help isn't just for current students. We provide lots of appointments for prospective students as well. You don't need to venture into Nottingham to have one. We can meet you on Teams or a telephone call. We can help you get your student finance all sorted, but we can also provide you with information and guidance about budgeting, money management. Occasionally, once you're here, if you need to take a break from your studies, we can advise how the funding might work when you do that. We can make sure that you're getting all of the income that you're entitled to if you're entitled to state benefits. And also, if you're thinking about progressing to postgraduate study, we can help you with funding for that course as well. So if you search on Google for NTU Student Finance Advisors, you'll find us. We're probably the top link, and you're welcome to book an appointment. They're online, 30 minutes. You'll meet one of us. We'll be able to help you get money ready for NTU. So finally then, 5 steps to financial success. So a bit of a recap really. Number 1 is do apply early for your funding, even if you're not sure which university you'll be going to. Number 2, get into the habit of budgeting. There's loads of really good apps to help you do that. There's loads of info on our website too. There's a budget planner that you can download. Find one that works well for you. If you get stuck, if you'd like a helping hand, you could have an appointment and we can go through a budget sheet together. But really get into that habit because it will pay dividends once you're here at the university. Sign up to Black Bullion. It's completely free to use. Prospective students can use it too. And then also consider your bank account. Do you need a student account Would you prefer one with a better interest rate? It's entirely up to you, but seek advice to find out what's going to work for you as an individual. And then finally, get money ready for NTU. So our online workshops cover the need to knows and the good to knows of money and student life. And that's my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I think we're going to open it up to some questions. Are we now, Katie?
Yeah, that's right. I'll just say that's good. Thank you very much for that, David. Very, very insightful. I think it's just really easy to look at it as like a journey of all the things, kind of where you need to be now, kind of what you need to be thinking. And I think you're right in saying just keep checking on your student finance even when you apply, just so that there's no problems with having your money in September. So
yeah, occasionally they do get stuck. So sometimes not everybody needs evidence. It's usually a slick operation, but if they're needing something and you're not sure that
yeah.
you weren't aware that they need it, it can really hold you up. We've still got a few students that haven't got their funding yet for that very reason. So it's a really important top tip.
Exactly. Thanks very much, Andrea. So, as you mentioned, we are going to move into some questions now. As I mentioned at the start, if you have asked a question and we don't get round to it, you can either ask it to our financial support services, and that's financial.support@ntu.ac.uk. I think we do have a banner at the bottom, but we might put that up at the end. And you can also rewatch the live, because it might be that we've already discussed the question in there, and you can also send us a direct message on social media. So that's if we don't get around to any of the questions here. So should we pop the first one on the screen? Oh, brilliant. Thanks for your question, Ben. So do you have to apply for student finance every year?
Yeah, hi Ben. Yes, you do as an undergraduate. It's a brilliant question. And the reason it's a brilliant question is because some of our undergraduates forget that. So yeah, you apply every year. And one important factor to bear in mind is that your maintenance loan could fluctuate on a year by year basis, as the tax year that student finance uses, your parental income for most students may change slightly. Applications typically open at the end of February, beginning of March, and as I've mentioned a few times now, do apply early. It's an easier application for returning students because they've already assessed who you are, so they know you, so it's quicker. So the first application generally takes a bit longer for that reason, but to answer your question, definitely every year for undergraduates.
Brill, thanks for that question, Ben. So we'll move on to the next one. Brill, so thank you very much for your question. So good afternoon. I've had student finance before on my bachelor's degree. Is further funding available if I decide to return to studying? So yeah, I think this question might be that if they've had student finance before, will that then affect their
Yes, absolutely. So previous study does affect eligibility for student finance, and some of it depends on whether or not you've completed the previous course. So just to give you some sort of rough information, if you've already got a degree, then normally you're not entitled to funding for another one at the same level of study. But there are some courses which are exempt from that. So some obvious answers are things like nursing and some allied health courses, or teacher training, and actually some part-time courses in science, technology, engineering, and maths. So there are a few out there, and I think if you were to email us at financial.support@ntu.ac.uk, we can look at your individual query and let you know what funding options are out there. If you started a degree but you hadn't finished, then you may get some tuition fee loan funding, but they normally provide funding only for a finite number of years. But there are some rules that we can help you apply to see if you can appeal for more, depending on your circumstances. So it's not an easy one to answer that. So it would depend on the course and your personal circumstances, but we can certainly have an appointment, look into it with you, and see where we go from here.
chat for that? Yeah, brilliant answer. Thank you very much, Dave. So this is our final question. And as I say, if we haven't got round to it, it's probably because we've already mentioned it in the live. So maybe just rewatch it and it becomes a video on YouTube. So thank you for this question. So hi, can I get the student maintenance even if I'm not British?
Okay, this is an excellent question too, because in order to receive student finance, you need to meet what's known as the Home Student Provisions. So you do not necessarily need to be a UK national, but you're more often than not going to need an immigration status, which allows you to be settled in the UK. So, for example, due to the changes from Brexit, those with settled status under the leaving the EU withdrawal agreement arrangements can still receive a maintenance loan and a tuition fee loan. It's a little bit more difficult if you only have pre-settled status. You're certainly going to get a tuition fee loan, possibly a maintenance loan if you're working or you're the family member of somebody in the UK working. If you're not from the EU, if you have settled status, so indefinite leave to remain, for example, then you may be able to receive student finance. If you only have a limited leave to remain, or if you're here on a tier 4 visa, it may be more difficult. There is a really excellent page on the .gov.uk website, which is called Student Finance Eligibility. Do take a look at it. It gives you some really good information. It is a complicated area. If you'd like us to investigate your own circumstances, drop us a line at financial.support@ntu.ac.uk and we will take a look at your case on an individual basis. Now, we don't do the assessments for student finance, so we can only give you an opinion. At the end of the day, it's the SLC, the student loans company, that do the assessments. It's their decision at the end of it all. But if you feel that they've ever done an assessment and they may have got it wrong, there is an appeals process, so we can certainly help you with that. But it's a complicated area. It's definitely a possibility, but we'd need to know more about your own circumstances before we can give you an answer to that one, unfortunately. But do contact us and I'll be keen to take a look for you.
I think financial.support@ntu.ac.uk sounds like the place to go if you've got any questions about your own circumstances. Now, here we go. Surprise! Look at that. So financial.support@ntu.ac.uk. So for any questions, leave your own circumstances. Our team will be more than happy to talk through and set up some options to basically assist you. So.
Yep.
So that is all the questions that we have today. I just want to say thank you very much, David, for that presentation. And
you're welcome. Anytime.
There. He will be on hand at the email address at the bottom to answer all your questions. And as mentioned, if you want to rewatch this live, it will be going on our YouTube channel under the videos and live section, so you can rewatch it there. We also had a personal statement one last week where you could be able to help. And next week we have a student life one as well. And that's on Tuesday at 4:30. So do join us again. So thank you very much again, David, for joining us this evening to chat through. And
thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And thanks to everybody watching. We will see you next time. See you later.